Hey y'all, hey, I'm back with another video. So I had no intentions of doing this, but I just finished the Carmen family's death Netflix doc. And I had to come on here because I have never watched, first of all, I love Netflix documentaries. That's the main reason I keep Netflix. I have never watched a Netflix documentary where this all of the evidence was so circumstantial. Normally with the Netflix docs, normally it's like it kind of starts you off thinking maybe somebody didn't do it. Then eventually it's like boom, there go the evidence right there. It's right smack in your face. And then boom, we got the person, or boom, we about to get the person. From the I was literally 40 minutes into this shit, and I'm like, every single thing that y'all are putting up about Nathan is all circumstantial. And I was literally poking holes from the very beginning, from the father's case to his mama's case. I was poking holes in every single thing that those people were saying. I've never seen no Netflix documentary where I was able to literally destroy the prosecution side so easily. That was crazy. So if y'all don't know, there's this new Netflix documentary, and it's called The Carmen Family Deaths, okay? And it's essentially about this man or whatever, this boy named Nathan Carmen. He's part of this family, the Carmen family. They're a very like wealthy family or whatever. The father was like a developer, so again, they had really a lot of money. And Nathan is on the spectrum, because that's really important too. We're gonna get into that. He's on the spectrum. And again, the story is about there's two different people that die. So the first half, you have them talking about the father, the patriarch of the family, the one who kind of started everything to get the money. He was in his own house. He was in the head, point blank range, in his own bed, assassinated. Boom. So that's the one case that we're dealing with. And then maybe 2 to 3 years later, we're dealing with the death of Nathan's mother. Okay, so the whole point of this is they're pretty much all saying that they believe that Nathan offed his grandfather and his mother. So that's pretty much this entire hour and some change, which I didn't want to watch it because I normally don't like documentaries that are like an hour and some change based on stuff like this. I like series because they're able to flesh everything out, and it does kind of feel like towards the end it was like rushed a little bit. I mean, I get it because I see what happened at the end, but still it feels like it was all kind of like rushed a little bit. But I got my tweets up here, right? Because I was really tweeting to make sure I had notes for this thing. Okay. So like I said, we start off and we meet this family, you know, what is that lady's name? Is her name, is it Alana? Is it, I know, wait, hold on y'all. I want to make sure that I had this lady's name right. I don't want to say anything wrong. Hold on. But anyway, we start off, like I said, meeting this family of 3. Now we meet Nathan's father, right? Nathan's father is in this documentary. You know, he's kind of giving us like a little bit of a background on everything. I'm sorry, y'all. I am really trying to figure out Linda Carmen. That is Nathan's mama. Lyndon and John. Okay, and John. So again, going through kind of the background of everything. So Linda is the daughter, like I said, of John. John, like I said, they're all Greek or whatever. He has this, he made his money pretty much, like I said, by doing real estate, developing different buildings, everything like that. So as time goes on, they pretty much, you know, show like how they went from nothing to something. So much to the point where they got this big ass house with an indoor pool, all this stuff. So the point of the matter is they had money. Now it's 4 girls. It's Linda, like I said, who's the second to oldest. Then you have 2 that's younger than her and 1 that's older than her. Now, a lot of this to me is very important. They made very clear, not just like her husband, but there was another like cousin or something like that that was in there, or John's nephew that was in there. They made it very clear, and even her sister, the one sister that was in there, that Linda was not like the rest. Linda didn't give 2 shits about the money, the fame, the fortune of it all. She did not care about that. Her sisters, on the other hand, they like all that shit. Linda didn't care about none of that. Linda actually got into it with her daddy and got into it with him a lot because he was very controlling, which I believe every single thing that was said about John. I believe it, that he was controlling, that he was abusive to his daughters, which we'll get into for a second, because the nephew, whatever the heck his name is, you tried it. We're going to get there in a second. So, like I said, John and Linda never really got along. You know, Linda was like really on some FU type stuff. So they got into this big argument because she wanted to like, you know, like leave or whatever, go be in the National Guard. And he was like, if you leave, you cut off. You ain't getting no money from me. She said, bad bitch. Bad bitch, bad money, bad money. I don't give a fuck. Take your little coin. So she left and she took her ass all the way to LA. Because mind you, I think they were like in New Hampshire, right? Takes her ass over to LA. She's in the National Guard. She meets her, you know, husband that we end up seeing later, right? So, which we didn't even get into whether or not, maybe I missed it, but did her and her husband get a divorce at some point in time? Because if so, that part was never covered either. But, yeah, so he really talks about how, you know, Linda was like a great person and she was always happy, but when it came to her family, it was super, super messy. Now, listen to this messy shit, right? Her husband said, or her ex-husband, whatever it is, said that when they got married, before they got married, that her dad was trying to get her to move back home so badly, and she wasn't with it. So whenever they got married, he was like, if y'all move back to the East Coast to where we are, right, I will literally buy y'all like a Dunkin' Donuts franchise, and I'll give that to y'all, and y'all can run it. So she was like, all right, bet. But they moved back to the East Coast, and guess what? He reneged on that promise. Ain't shit, trifling. Reneged on that promise, and then made her pretty much work for him, because you made me come all the way back out here when I didn't want to, because you promised me something. And now that I'm here, you want to snatch it from me. What other choice do I have but to work for you? Now, her husband talked about how that was very, very volatile. And this is the point I want to talk about, right? Her husband talks about how she was like, I've never really seen no dynamic like that. Like, he would curse them out. He would slap, like, not just his wife, but his daughters. Like, it was real physical and real violent. Meanwhile, he'll come to cousin, a.k.a. John's nephew, talk about some, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, they fought. You know, they argued. And, yeah, there was some fighting. But, you know, nobody ever went to the hospital. I'm going to tell you something right now before we keep going. I don't trust not one of them damn Carmens that opened their mouth. The only person that I believe full-heartedly on this damn documentary is her best friend. It was Linda's best friend. I don't trust nobody else. Even the daddy to a degree. How much can I believe him? Because you're going to stick up for your son. But when I'm telling you, I damn sure don't believe nothing of, not one iota do I believe that came out of that sister's mouth or that came out of that damn nephew's mouth. Most importantly, because although we talked about both John's death and Linda's death, it seemed to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but everything it seemed to me, it don't seem like they gave two shits about their sister dying or Linda dying. It came off to me like they could give two fucks about that lady dying. They cared about the fact that their father was killed. They didn't care nothing about the fact that he could have possibly offed his own mother. They didn't care about that. To me, that showed enough. Y'all never liked that lady. I think it's very clear to me from this documentary that Linda was clearly the black sheep for a very, very long time, from not just with her father, but probably with everybody else in the family too. And then once John actually was or whatever, y'all completely iced her out even more than y'all already wanted to. Because y'all cannot tell me that Linda was not the black sheep of that family. Between, like I said, her being rebellious, and then on top of that, the fact that Nathan was the first son. I'm going to tell y'all something. As somebody, I am the first grandchild. Now, it's 7 of my aunts and uncles, including my father. It is 7 of them. And when I'm telling you, there be dead ass real jealousy amongst siblings when it comes to who had the first child. I am not lying, because I am the first grandchild. I am the oldest grandchild. I'm the first one. And when I'm telling you, there is so much jealousy to this day. I am 30 years old and there is so much jealousy around the fact that my mama's water broke before somebody else's did. That is not a joke, that there be tension for years simply because people are mad that you had the first grandchild. Because it's not just so much that you had the first grandchild, it's the weight that's put on that, and especially like how grandparents are with their very first grandchild. And they talked about that, how, you know, not only was he the first grandchild, but he was, you know, a boy. So, you know, John, like, literally doted all over him, like, left and right. And you cannot tell me that that did not bother the other sisters and the other siblings and other people in the family. I don't care what the fuck y'all say. Sorry about that. I had to take a call. But anyway, so my thing is, you cannot tell me that they was not treating that lady like the black sheep. I don't care, right? But my thing is, like, it just felt like from the minute this shit started, it was just all, well, I get it, it's a documentary. But it just felt like from the very beginning, they was trying to get Nathan. Now, I want to start off by saying this before we even get into all my circumstantial evidence. I want to be very clear. I'm not saying that Nathan didn't do it. Actually, before we get there, I'm going to tell you where I stand with this. I think that Nathan's mama has something to do with what happened to her daddy, and it could have been as simple as Linda telling Nathan to go do something, or it could have been, venting about some shit, and he could have felt like, well, you always doing this, you always doing that to my mama, so I'm a, you know what I'm saying? But you can't tell me that Linda didn't have nothing to do. If Nathan did, because the situation with Nathan, his grandfather, I'm less likely to believe that story and more likely to believe what happened with his mom, because we're going to get into why the father makes no sense, but I'm going to tell you this something. If he did do something to his grandfather, which I don't believe he did, but if he did, I 1010% believe that Linda had something to do with that shit too, right? Number two, I don't know. I am more inclined to believe that he did what he did to his mama, but what I'm going to say though about all of that though is it's all circumstantial evidence. That's number one. And number two, what I walked away with all of this from, as I said from the beginning, the Carmens are trash as a family. Y'all are trash. Y'all are triggity trash. So, like I said, to start this case off, right? So we start off, like I said, with after we go through everything that happened, we kind of go through, I believe that Nathan was diagnosed on autism, on the spectrum, maybe like somewhere around 4 or whatever. And I thought this part was interesting, right? There was a really big rift between Linda and her father, about how pretty much Nathan was being handled and how his autism was being handled and how his grandfather felt like, oh, he's fine. But that's definitely like an older person, like thinking, we aren't where we are today, and knowing about autism and the spectrum and mental illness and all that other stuff. So he just had like this real one like trait, like straight of mind, right? So like I said, we start off, before we get into some of the more of the background, so we start off with, like I said, the John, right? So I guess I think the oldest daughter must have came over to his house and found him, like I said, in his bed, right? Now, when the police come on, they're like, okay, we came. It was like a really horrific scene. It was clear that it wasn't a struggle. It wasn't none of that. Somebody walked up straight to him, boom, right in the face or whatever, offed him like that. And so first they started talking about, okay, well, it could have possibly been maybe, like at first there was some ideas about like the mob possibly having something to do with it. Because, he was a millionaire. He wasn't developing. And, they be stepping on people's feet or whatever. But the black cops' report to that was like, well, they don't come to your house and do that. And normally you'll just disappear altogether. Not necessarily. Have you not seen The Godfather where they cut that horse's head off and left it right in his daggone bed? Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't. So I didn't think that was valid to be like, oh, well, they never come to your house. Don't say never. Do not say never, because you don't know what this man was into. So please do not say ever. Again, super circumstantial. So then they talk about, okay, so then they show, them bringing in Linda or whatever, right? Talking to Linda. Linda, we see her in the interview, and she's pretty much explaining, like how her and her dad didn't really have the best relationship, but they were trying, and how he was just really like, had a good heart, but he was an asshole. And he constantly wanted to try to tell her what to do when it came to Nathan, right? Then they bring in Nathan, right? And so this is, to me, what made literally no sense. I feel like the way that the police in this documentary was talking to me shows that none of them know how to deal with people on the spectrum. None of them do. Y'all, every single police officer on that first case that was talking about this shit, y'all were all did y'all not have training even in 2016 or 2013 about how to deal with people on the spectrum? Because first of all, he's like, well, his demeanor was just completely off. And yes, I know that he's on the spectrum, but no, everything was super cold and super like this, and just everything was up. I'm like, bro, he's on the spectrum. So when we say a spectrum, right? And I also want to make clear that I'm not trying to use his autism throughout this to try to say oh, it's okay that he did it, or oh, because he was autistic, there's no way that he could do it. I'm not saying that, but there's certain things that they were pointing out that literally you can tell had to do with the fact that he was autistic. So when you're you're saying, oh, well, he's not reacting. He's on the spectrum. And like I said, when we say a spectrum, that means it's large. It's wide. Meaning you could be at this end, you could be at that end, you could be in the middle, you could be all up in the gray. So just because you may have maybe interacted with one autistic person, or maybe even 2 or 3, that does not mean that all of them are going to act the same way. So it's like when you're talking about his mannerisms and the way he's talking and, oh, his vibe and the body's all off, you cannot use that when you're talking about somebody on the spectrum. That shit goes clear out the window, because the way that we think people should behave is not how people on the spectrum behave. Given, well, they're on the spectrum. They sounded so dumb to me talking about Nathan and not even connecting that a lot of the stuff that they was pointing out really was just his autism showing up. You're slow. It was slow. I even tweeted, I said, I'm only 10 minutes in, but I do not like the way the police are taking small stuff so far that's not that far off for someone who is like who's autistic, like it's a smoking gun. The black detective also says that when they first came in there and sat down, right, and they was like, he was crying and he was super uncontrollable, and he was like, it was so weird, and it just went on for a long time, and he finally just blurted out, and he was like, how can I do okay when my grandfather got his head blown off? And the black detective was like, well, we hadn't told nobody. Like, nobody in our police department had let that out or whatever. Now, they tried to catch him by showing that they asked him, like, oh, did anybody tell you, like, how he passed or whatever? And he said, no. They called and said that he passed away, but they didn't really give us the how. All I know is that it was either a murder or suicide, the way that, I understood it to be. But no, they did not say specifically how he passed. And they're trying to use that as the smoking gun as, oh, well, how would he know if we didn't say anything? This is my thing. Y'all are saying, how would he know that his head got blown off if nobody on my department said? Okay, this is the thing. His aunt is the one who found her father. And this is what I'm saying. I'm sorry. If I'm his defense attorney, I could tear all this shit up. If that's what y'all presented, this is what I'm going to say. His aunt is the one who found her father. I'm pretty sure the way that y'all explained the state that she was in, I highly doubt that the aunt that found him had to hear from y'all that her father got shot in the head or that his head got blown off. Also, the cousin, the cousin that was on the documentary also said that he saw the splatter and everything. So my thing is, no police officer has to tell anybody in that damn family that he got his head blown off, because somebody in the family walked in and found him that way. And also when they said, well, did anybody tell you the manner in which he died? And he said, no, they did not say exactly how he died. But they just said that he passed. But from my understanding, it was either a murder or a die. And my thing is, with that being said, what they're trying to twist it is pretty much trying to make it seem like, oh, well, see, he said that nobody told him exactly how he died, so how would he know that he got his blown off? Okay, I think what he was saying, if I'm listening to it, is he even said that, but from whatever I can tell it's either or, meaning he knows that it was very, very violent. And just because whoever called them initially didn't tell them exactly what happened, that's a big ass family. Clearly everybody in there running their mouth. You don't think he would have heard from somebody that that's how they found his grandfather and could put 2 and 2 together? That was so weak to me. So weak. There's 1,010 different ways that he could have put together that his grandfather's head was blown off. You think he don't hear the family talking? Just because, like he said, just because nobody specifically said to him, your grandfather's head was off, that doesn't mean that he can't put 2 and 2 together of what happened. That was so weak to me to say. Like, that was such weak. Circumstantial. Look, I said, all of this shit is circumstantial, right? So, okay, so I'm trying to see where we at in the story since I'm doing all this. Okay, so... So we have that, so that's literally all that they could use for why they don't believe him, right? Then it also comes up the fact that the police says that for an hour he was missing. So the story that Nathan gives is that him and his grandfather went out to eat the night that he passed away, right? Or night that him and his father went out to eat around 8:30. dropped him off home, and then Nathan went home, which ain't that far away, and then Nathan was supposed to meet up with his mom at like 3 a.m. or something like that, all the way down to go fishing. However, I think they said for maybe like an hour, they couldn't ping his location or whatever, and the timing was from, I think, like maybe 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock. They could not actually ping him or find him. And they also said that his mother called him about four to five times during that hour. So they asked him, where were you during that time? He says that he went, dropped his grandfather off, came home. He said he did leave home late, and then he said when he left, the way that he normally goes, I think he said he got turned around, so it just took him longer to get there or whatever. Now, I would say, okay, that's some strong evidence. But you want to know what actually kicks that out the window? If I'm the defense attorney, to say that's all circumstantial, a lot of things could have happened, because the actual neighbor, the neighbor of John, said that they heard shots at 2 a.m. And according to I guess to whatever forensic they did, they're saying that he probably died somewhere between 2 and 4 a.m. But at 2 a.m., when the neighbor said that they could actually hear the gunshot, Nathan is accounted for at 2 a.m. 2 a.m., Nathan is at his house. Boom, circumstantial evidence, bitch. Because what you're pretty much saying is, because for you to say that Nathan was the person and was there, that means that you would have to say that the neighbor is lying. You would have to say that the neighbor is not telling the truth about what time she heard the shot. So again, circumstantial evidence. It's not lining up. It's not lining up. And it's not even like she said, if she would have said somewhere between 2 and 3, maybe, but she said at 2 a.m. is when I heard it. Not 2:30, not closer to 3. She said 2 a.m. And y'all only couldn't find him between the hours of 3 and 4 a.m. Again, not to say he didn't do it, but it's all circumstantial as far as I'm concerned, right? So then we go into pretty much like what happened, I think, like in between, like, of all of this going on, around the case and stuff. So a couple of things. Again, the Carmen family is terrible. They're trash. They automatically believe that Nathan did something to their father because he was the last person to see him. I just feel like that's just so much. Again, like I said, a lot of the stuff that I'm hearing, I get why it would lean people to think that way, but at the same time, it comes off to me like y'all, like, it didn't matter. Y'all couldn't wait to check him off as somebody that did something wrong. That's the vibe that the family gave. Sorry, the family is so passive and aggressive, right? That during this time when they're trying to figure out like who actually did what they did to John, they put up this big ass billboard with their father's picture on it and with a $250,000 reward and all this stuff. And the sister's like, yeah, people purposefully put that billboard up on the way that Linda and Nathan take on the highway because they wanted them to see it every single day. It's like, y'all are so, bruh, Carmen family, trash. Y'all are y'all think that y'all being passive aggressive is gonna get this person, even if he did do something, to come out and say? Y'all are insane. Y'all are insane. And you cannot tell me that more did not happen with that little boy being around all them people and that lady. You can't tell me. You cannot tell me. Dumb Carmen family is trash. So they do that, right? Then, like I said, then we get a little bit into the little bit of like the relationship again, like I said, between John and Nathan. Now, again, like I said, he doted on him real bad. And Nathan had a horse. Okay, Nathan had a horse. Nathan had this horse. The horse was his only daggone friend, right? From, I think, like maybe 7 years old. The horse dies when Nathan is like 16. Completely breaks this boy's heart. So much to the point to where he pretty much goes and lives in the camper. That's right outside his parents' house. And he pretty much just sinks into a super deep depression. He don't come out. He don't go nowhere. And I mean, prior to that, they said he does not have friends. He don't go nowhere. He just be in his room by himself. But with the camper, it was like really getting bad, right? So much to the point to where it was so bad, I guess, to the point where they was like, okay, we're gonna like try to, I think, did they volunteer voluntarily sent him off first? I don't think I can't remember. But the point of the matter is, did y'all see that Paris Hilton documentary where she talked about how they came and dragged her out of her bed in the middle of the night and took her in the middle of the night to some conversion therapy shit? That's what they did to him. They called some people that I don't know, some camp that has to do with people that got like obsessive disorders and stuff and some other things going on. And those people came in the middle of the night. In the middle of the night, they came and yanked Nathan out of his bed. And similar to what Paris Hilton was saying, they said he was yelling and screaming and crying on top of his lungs like, please, please don't let me go. And the father was like, well, we just didn't have no choice. I hate y'all parents that do that. Please, please stop letting people come in the middle of the night to yank your child out of their bed. Please stop. Y'all be having troubled people, like troubled teens or troubled youth or whatever, and y'all think that by kidnapping them out of their bed in the middle of the night, that somehow that helps. It's a way that if you want to get him there, you could have got him there. Y'all got more than enough money. There was a lot of ways y'all could have did that to get him there. And the fact that y'all would literally pay people to yank your child out of his bed in the middle of the night to take him to God knows where is trifling. Linda is trifling and the daddy is trifling for that. I understand that he was going through some stuff, but there was a much better way to do that. I hate that. Because like I said, it just gives me the whole Paris Hilton documentary thing and it's trash. And I want y'all to stop doing that to your kids. Please. It's not helpful. So, you know, he goes off to the therapy camp or whatever, comes back or whatever. When he comes back, he pretty much like refuses to step foot like in the house or whatever. He's still staying in the camper. Now during this time, right, John is taking over a little bit more when it comes to Nathan. So now Nathan at this point, I think it got so bad between him and his mom, right, that John ends up coming to grab Nathan and takes him over to the guy that we see in the documentary's house. He goes to stay with him. But let's back up for a second. When Nathan was in that little camp order that they sent him to, he sent an 11-page letter to his priest. And I want to read that entire letter because I thought it was very interesting that they pointed out. He said in that letter, he said, you know, most people, you know, most parents, they want they kids to be doctors and lawyers and all this other stuff. My mom wants to have a child that's autistic, that sits on the couch, that doesn't do anything, that drools, and that she has to change their diaper and take care of them until the day until she can't anymore. I thought that was real interesting, and that's why we should have had a series, because I wanted to delve into the relationship between Nathan and his mama a little bit more, because all they really said is that once he became a teenager, they didn't really get along. But there was no explanation as to why they really didn't get along. And if I'm going off of that little part right there, it just gives me very much like, what is the name? Is it Munchausen? I can't even say it. Y'all know I cannot say it. What is it starts with an M. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. The disorder when the parent makes the child sick, when the child's not really sick, but they make them sick or whatever, so that, you know, they can get like sympathy and do all this stuff. That's pretty much what it sounds like he was saying. It sounded like he was saying like, my mom actually gets off on me being autistic, and she likes the fact that she has to do all of these things for me, and she likes the fact that pretty much like that she feels like she's needed, you know, by me. And to me, that was saying a lot. That was saying a lot to me. I thought that was very, very interesting. And I also thought it was interesting that everybody said, you know, like once she found out that he was autistic, she was reading and on every little single thing and getting all these special and all of this. And I'm like, on one way, you could frame that as if she's being a good mom. She's trying to make sure that her son is good. But if you're listening to Nathan's side, it can kind of come off like, did you just want to feel needed very much so by somebody? So as much as you might have claimed that him being autistic might have been hard for you, you actually kind of got something out of like being needed so much. I wish we could have explored that a little bit more. I thought that was super interesting. But anyway, John comes, pretty much scoops Nathan up, you know, keeps him underneath his wing. Like I said, puts him off to the cousin, like, let him come stay with you. The cousin says that as Nathan stayed there, you know, his mental health just started to real badly. He would be pacing. They would ask him about taking medication. He said, I'm not taking no medication. My mama want to put me in a nut house. Oh, I forgot, because that part happened too. After he got out of the therapy little conversion thing, and they felt like he wasn't like doing any better, they did put him in a mental institution. And that's when John was coming to see him and everything like that, and all the time and all that. So during this time while he's staying with the cousin, you know, John, I guess, got fed up with Nathan and was like, now they said at this point in time, John was paying everything for Nathan, and always paid his rent, everything. And that he normally got like about $100,000 a year from John. So it's never like he really had to worry about money. That was never a problem for him. So I guess though, John got to the point where he was like, no, you need to go to school. I'm like not gonna keep paying for everything. You need to get a job. But the cousin said that that his words was he wasn't disciplined enough to do that. But I feel like if I'm listening to everything y'all said not only did he have autism, but it was clear that he also had a mental illness. So disciplined might not be the right word. He maybe just didn't have the tools, especially like y'all said, he wasn't taking medication and he refused to go to therapy. I highly doubt it. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's the discipline, but how can you be disciplined when you're mentally going through what you're going through, right? So all of that happens, right? Cool. Let's jump back, like I said, to John, you know, post him passing. And the reason to me all of that is important is because to me, I'm trying to understand the motive, because we're about to actually move on from John's death to Linda's death. My thing with this is they didn't present a motive as to why Nathan would do that to his grandfather. Like, there was no motive given at all. Everything was circumstantial, and there was no hard motive. Because number one, okay, what they tried to say the motive was is that I guess like right after he passed or whatever, there was some type of the will and all the insurance and stuff was like claim or filed, and that Nathan got like $400,000 out of that. My thing about that, like I said, is not only did his parents say this, but everybody in the family said this as well, that Nathan had 0 friends. Nathan stayed to himself. Nathan didn't really go anywhere. He stayed in his room, and when he wasn't in his room and he moved out to the camper, he was in there. So my thing is, and on top of that, everything is already getting paid for. So like somebody said, what does it benefit him to harm? Because they tried to make it seem like it was all about money. I don't understand how he benefited really from that, because, okay, great, he has $400,000, but y'all didn't show anything past that of did he make any big purchases? Was he moving money around? No, he went back to doing the same thing he did, which is sit by himself. So I'm trying to understand him getting that extra $400,000. What would that have done for him when, again, he doesn't go anywhere, he don't have any friends? So what would he need $400,000 for? And they never even showed that. They never showed what was the money for. And especially, like everybody said, when his grandfather doted on him, he probably would have got way more money if he kept that old ass man alive and just maybe listened to whatever it is that he had to say. There was no, so to me, that's why, going back to what I originally said, I think if Nathan did do something to his grandfather, it mostly had something to do with his mother. Because as y'all said, his mother and his father didn't have a great relationship. And it could have been on the mama, because I think Nathan said during the interview, right, when they was first interviewing him about John, that he talked about how his mom did not have a great relationship with his dad. And he was like, I'm not trying to throw her underneath the bus here. I'm just saying she really could not stand him. So it's given me that he might have maybe saw like that, like the friction between the dad and his mom maybe, and maybe felt like, all right, let me go do something for my mom. So if anything, I think Linda had something to do with whatever happened between him and John. You can't tell me no different. That's what I believe, okay? But you want to know what? All of that said, and guess what? They did not charge him. They did not arrest him. Do you want to know why? Because everything was circumstantial. So when the family's like, I just don't understand, people's been arrested on less. Because you see how I just sat here and I ate y'all whole argument up? There was way too many holes. Everything coming when it comes to John's shit was circumstantial. Now the mama's case was a whole lot stronger, which is why they was able to get his ass in jail. But the father's case, all of that was circumstantial. I could have poked the hole as a defense attorney in everything y'all said. Everything. And for him to go to jail, it would have to be proven without reasonable doubt that he did that. There was nothing but reasonable doubt all through that case. So I see why they did not do it, because we're not gonna waste our time trying to put a case up that we know that's not gonna win. That case, y'all were never gonna win that case. Never. Moving on to his mama. I feel like we didn't spend nearly as much time on his mom's case. Him and his mom go out on the water or whatever, or go fishing like they normally do. But this time, I think the best friend was like, she got a text from her saying, we going out. I'll call you back tomorrow around 5. She did not get a phone call at 5, so she called the police. Could not find them. They went looking for 7 days. Could not find these people for 7 days. On day 7, they end up finding, Nathan. Nathan had, they found him in a raft by himself. Nathan said the boat sank. The boat sank, whatever. His mama, I think, went down with it too, whatever. It was only him left. Now, from the very beginning, they felt like, number one, that's weird as hell, that, like, who can really survive out here on 7 days? I mean, less likelier things have happened. Like, yes, I understand, but I think there was a man who was holding on to a damn fucking buoy and fucking lasted for 4 or 5 days. Like, no. Is it likely? No. But has way less likely things happen? Absolutely. Number one. Number two, I've seen those damn life rafts because I watch Deadliest Catch now. So I see the way it looks inside of those rafts. Those rafts, especially if you're by yourself, are big as shit because it's supposed to fit like a lot of people in there. That shit's big as hell. And it has like the little thingy on it. And he said that he also had rations in there as well. Again, is it a crazy story? Yes. But is it super unlikely? No, not at all. And we'll get into everything else a little bit later. So from the jump, they're already like, oh, well, how could he last that long? They're literally breaking down like, oh, the fact that he pulled himself up and the fact that he was actually able to walk is insane. It's just physically impossible for him to be able to walk. And they're literally like zooming in on how he's gripping the stairs to go up. I say, yo, this evidence is so trash that y'all are presenting. This part of the evidence is so trash because as somebody ended up coming and saying later, what are you talking about? When you see that your rescue is right there, your adrenaline will kick in so crazy that you will be like, whoa, let me get the fuck up out of here. 1,010%. What are y'all talking about? I'm not saying that what he didn't do. But I'm saying that we can easily poke holes in everything you're saying. Like he said, your adrenaline can easily kick in. You'll be like, bitch, what? Safety? Bitch, I'm out of here. And then when you get there, you could collapse. But safety and adrenaline is a real thing. It kicks in once you're like, oh, what the fuck? Let me get the fuck out of here. So that was so weak to be like, oh, well, he was actually able to stand up. It's physically impossible. That's not true. Please stop. They were killing me with it's scientifically impossible. No, based on y'all science, stop saying things are scientifically impossible to make it sound good because it's just not fucking true. It's not true. So anyway, they get him or whatever. The father comes and gets him. He said that the father was like, he just wanted to be by himself. And I'm pretty sure it's because he was like really upset that he couldn't save his mom. Leaves him by himself. All that other stuff. Now, the way that apparently he got like quote unquote caught is because they were trying to like piece everything together to see, like why he would have did this to his mom, all this other stuff. And what happened was that he filed a claim for the boat like 2 weeks later. And they're like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? It's my boat. Like, I get that my mom passed away, but am I not supposed to file an insurance claim on my boat? Because it went down. That's not enough. Like, what they were trying to make things like make the smoking gun to me was not the smoking gun. Their smoking gun for this case was, oh, well, why would you file an insurance claim? Why the fuck would I not? That's like if my house burnt down and somebody in my family burnt down and that like died in that house. Am I supposed to not like file an insurance claim simply because somebody died in that house? That literally makes zero sense at all. But anyway, he did F himself with this insurance claim because, when insurances hate to pay anything out, mind you, insurance is a scam itself, but that's not the conversation. The insurance people, I guess, claim or whatever claimants come out, they do the investigation. And during the investigation, one of the people at the dock told them that they saw Nathan coming a few hours early before he left off. He didn't have like no bait, no nothing. He had just came down and he was like working on a boat, and that he had drilled off like these 2 little pieces in the back of the boat or whatever, and he took them off. And so when you taking those off, that leaves 4 holes in the boat, and it shows that I guess he tried to patch up the holes or whatever, but he didn't patch up the holes good enough. So that's how the boat sank, because there was water coming in through, as he ended up saying, like some holes in the boat. So that's pretty much, the insurance company was like, oh, see, you're full of shit. It sunk because of your own repairs. So because of that, the insurance company was able to like provide all of that information over to the police of what they found, and then they used that on top of some other shit that they had and pretty much locked Nathan up for that. Nathan held on to his innocence, like, I would never do that to my mama. He was shaky. I will say that, like, okay, also another, to me, good piece of evidence that they had, it seemed like good piece of evidence, was that literally at least for the grandfather, is during like this part of the case, they found out that Nathan had actually went to go purchase a gun out of state, right? Like a little bit before his grandfather had passed, and that those shells, the shells for that gun matched the shell of the type of gun that he had. However, his defense attorney said, but there are 600 other type of guns that have that exact same type of shell. I'm saying, see? I believe this, and so keep going on or whatever. And I think he lied about that. What else did he lie about? I'm trying to think what else he lied about. Oh, they also asked him, like, why is it that when the boat was filling up with water, like, why didn't you tell your mom to put on the life jacket? Now, he said, because I was just more so concerned. I didn't want her to freak out, and I was trying to, like, just get it fixed. And he said, I didn't think that the boat would actually sink. So, no, I did not, I didn't say anything to her. I just didn't. I just told her to get the line in. They asked if he heard her, like, yelling or crying for help or something like that. He said, I don't know, I don't remember. So yes, that part right there of the story is a little shaky, along with the holes in the boat. Like I said, I think all of that, like I said, the mom's case was a whole lot stronger, especially because he did not have a great relationship with his mom, and he felt like his mom was a bully to him. He felt like his mom was very mean to him. He felt like his mom, like I said, was just nasty to him overall. So to me, the story about the mama makes a whole lot more sense than it do about the daggone grandfather. However, again, all circumstantial evidence. So the prosecution, so they go ahead and they arrest his ass, right? The prosecution is pretty much saying that they do not believe, they don't believe the story that he's telling. What they think happened is that he went prior, like I said, to drill the holes or whatever. And then now mind you, there's this big ass like boat or whatever, ship or whatever. I think that was the one that like found him, right? They're trying to say that they think he purposefully lined it up to where he would leave out and that ship would not see him, but he would line it up to where when they was coming back, whichever way that they was coming back, that they would see him. I'm like, all right, y'all are stretching. Like everything else I understand, but to me, I think the weakest part, and this is where I really feel like I don't think Nathan would have went to jail, because I feel like y'all are not presenting a good case of actually what happened. Because what they're saying, again, like I said, that's one part. They're pretty much saying that they don't believe that he was in that raft for 7 days. They think that he brought his mom out there, he did what he did to her, then he went somewhere else. Because the question is, where was he for 7 days? And their answer to that is, literally, they don't know. They don't know. They say, I don't know, somewhere along the coastline, or he could have hid under an embankment for 7 days, or he could have hid in plain sight and just been walking around, but there's no way. And so we think that after the 6th day, he went ahead and he got on his boat, and then he purposefully was found. I'm just like, yo, that is such a weak ass case, bro. The whole time when they're like, there's no way, I'm screaming at my phone like, so then where was he for 7 fucking days? Where was he for 7 fucking days? And the fact that y'all could not even really give an answer. Y'all don't. Nathan, I'm telling you, Nathan would have walked on that charge. There was no boat. There was no body. There was no evidence of him being anywhere else for those 7 days. And then they also tried to say like, oh, well, if we go off of like the drift science, he shouldn't have been nowhere near where we actually found him. He should have been somewhere else. And drift science, it's super complicated. It does all this. I'm with the person who came later. Child, drift science, it's a science too, but at the same time, it's a lot of things in there that you cannot take into consideration. You don't know if he was really out there for 7 days. You don't know the way that the winds was every single time. You don't know the current every single time. You can guess, but all it's doing is guessing. You have no idea. How you gonna tell the ocean what the ocean doing? The ocean could say we going this way today, and then take you that way today, and then take you this way. You can't tell the ocean what the ocean want to do. So to me, that's also weak. If I'm a jury, I ain't buying all that shit, bitch. It's the ocean. You ain't telling the ocean where somebody going to end up. They're going to end up where the hell they end up. If that's the case, why the hell didn't they find that plane that freaking dropped off in the middle of nowhere? It might be somewhat accurate, but I'm not going to put all my votes in. I'm not going to put all my coins in. And then another thing that the prosecution was saying is that they felt like Nathan was way too like prepared or whatever. Like he had a whole bunch of food, like ration foods, and that he also had like this emergency machine that would take salt water and make it into regular water. And yes, from the outside that does seem a little suspicious. However, I love that the guy, because I was saying it just as he popped up on the screen, the guy that was autistic but was a lawyer, he said this, and I was just talking to somebody about this. He said a lot of times when you're on the spectrum, it really has a lot to do with being structured, organized, and like literally like preparing for like the worst case scenario. And he was like, so no, it's not surprising to me that going on a fishing trip that he would have something like that, because a lot of times when you are on the spectrum, you prepare for stuff like that. And he said people look at us and think either A, we're up to something, he said, or sometimes they just think that we're straight dumb, like we're preparing for something that's never gonna happen. He said, so no, that does not surprise me that he had that machine. It does not surprise me that he had his rations and he was actually able to ration it correctly. Have you ever really been around people on the spectrum? Like not one, two, but like a lot of people on the spectrum. Hell, even if you watch Love on the Spectrum, if y'all just look at that show, that can show y'all how a lot of people on the spectrum, it really is about being organized. A lot of it is like anxiety and making sure that you're like overly prepared for something. So no, if it was an average person, yes, I would think that that's weird. But no, it's not weird to me that somebody on the spectrum would actually bring all that shit with them just to make sure. I'm not saying it's not weird. I'm just saying. So other than that, they locked Nathan up. Long story short, Nathan ended up on himself. He ended up on himself. So that's really the end of the story. We will never know. The world may never know. You know, some people are going to look at it like, oh, he did that because of the guilt of what he did. Ooh, that's another thing too, right? So this is something else that they tried to use as evidence. They said a little bit, maybe, I don't know, a few months, a year or so. It was a while after John died, right? That I guess maybe like their family's church or something like that, that one of the sisters was like, oh, Linda and Nathan is out there. So when he goes out there, he sees Nathan is at the altar and he's begging for forgiveness, and his mama is sitting in the back. And they're like, this just went on and on and on and on and on and on for a long time. And that when the priest came up behind him, they're like, because they really tried to set it up like it was a big moment. They was like, and when the priest came up behind him, he heard him say, I just asked you for forgiveness. I said, well, what the hell else is he at the altar for? That was their shooting gun. That was their smoking gun too. He heard him say, he was asking God for forgiveness. Well, again, all circumstantial. Is most of us, when we're not praying to God, either thanking him for something or asking him for forgiveness for something? If I'm his lawyer, I could have been like, he could have been asking for forgiveness for, you know, maybe not being there for when his grandfather died. He could have been asking forgiveness for maybe not being the best grandson, not being the best son, just having issues overall altogether. Like, what are y'all talking about? That was terrible. I get what y'all trying to set it up like, oh, he's asking forgiveness because his grandfather. Child, so everything was circumstantial. That's what this whole thing should have been called. Circumstantial evidence. All circumstantial. And in my opinion, if Nathan would have actually stayed alive, he would have got off on this case. You can't tell me no different. He would have got off on this case. Everything was way too circumstantial. And the evidence that the prosecution was presenting to us as the audience, terrible. So many holes. So many daggone holes. So many. They also brought up of like, oh, a little bit before his mom passed away, he had reached out to the attorneys to try to see. He wanted specific questions about how the trust was set up, and they're highlighting words like upon my grandfather's death, upon my mother's death. How the fuck do you think people get access to their trust? A lot of times it's because when people die. It's not like the Carol Baskin thing when it was like upon death or disappearance. The disappearance part gagged me. But upon my grandfather's death, yes, that's how I get access to the money. People have to die for me to get access to this money. That's not a weird thing to ask. And if I'm his defense attorney, I'm like, clearly this is a multi-million-dollar situation. It's not that off for somebody to want to know, how does actually all of this break down? Because it's a lot of money and I'm just not getting an understanding. Child, it was all circumstantial. That's all I had. This was some circumstantial as evidence. But I want to stand on the fact, I'm not saying that he didn't do it. Where I stand is that I think if he did do that to his grandfather, his mama has something to do with that. And I believe he probably really did do something to his mama. But I'm saying all I have to say is that y'all evidence wasn't strong enough. So feel how y'all want to feel about him. But this little nigga was smart because all of this evidence is circumstantial. But y'all get in the comments, tell me what y'all think about. Bye.